Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining this presentation on magnesium and why it's critical to health and well-being. Many of us are suffering from magnesium deficiencies and are basically unaware of it, due to how many functions in the body magnesium's linked to and its influences. Magnesium is clearly one of the most critical minerals that is required, and potentially it's linked to a higher number of chronic disease states than we actually wish to acknowledge. And it's unusual that I hear anyone referring to magnesium. People know if they're getting certain symptoms, but mostly people are very focused on other things, but actually it's critical to health. It's needed by every cell in the body. It plays a vital role in enzyme systems and cell metabolism, and all chemical reactions in the body require an enzyme system to help the biochemical reaction. So for this reaction, you need a protein, you need an organic compound, and you need a charged mineral. And you're looking at a charged mineral there. Each mineral, when dissolved into fluids, has its own characteristic charge, and magnesium is one of the most abundant. It's needed for protein synthesis. So for those of you who are struggling with proteins and your amino acids, this is a key part of it, and it's also needed for the utilization of fats and carbohydrates. Whilst we're considering a cleanse as we come up to April, we might also want to realize that magnesium is needed for energy production and detoxification enzymes. It helps us to regulate sodium, potassium, and calcium. So it's absolutely key during cleansing. Now, let me see, am I able to, there we go. Indications that you might be magnesium deficient include thirst. If you're drinking, are you drinking enough water? If you are drinking enough water, then potentially it's an electrolyte imbalance, I should say, that you need to look at. And that could be that the magnesium is deficient. You've got disturbed sleep patterns. You've got leg cramping that a lot of people know about already. You've got foot pain, though. You've got a loss of appetite, which obviously is indicated by other minerals as well. You've got nausea. You've got things like vomiting, fatigue, weakness. You've got tingling, numbness, and seizures happening. It could be happening. You've got personality changes, abnormal heart rhythms, coronary spasms, and hunger. Now, if you look at some of those, you'll recognize the fact that they actually link also with other minerals being deficient. And also, some of this could look like blood sugar dropping in particular. So you might want to think about that and how magnesium is implicated in a lot of different chronic disease states. And this is why I wanted you to be aware of that. We have an issue with our soils now that basically means that we are not providing enough of the minerals we need in our diet. The insecticides and pesticides are killing off the worms and the bacteria in the soils. We're ignoring how important this bacteria is for our health, never mind the plants. A high proportion of us are eating a deficient diet on a daily basis and not even realizing it in some respects. We think we're actually eating healthy foods and a wide variety of foods, and that's genuinely not the case for some of us. Processed foods are pretty much devoid of nutrients, particularly magnesium, that we need to function properly. So if we've not got it in the soils in the quantity that we used to have, and then the foods are starting to be stripped more and more to become more and more refined, guess what? That amount of this key mineral is becoming reduced, and reduced. By the time it's got to us, it's significantly lower than it should be. And we use toiletries that contain fluorides that bind to magnesium. I'm in Northern Ireland, and the Irish, they love their tea. I'm from the north of England. We'd give them a good run for their money, to be honest, in regards to tea. And when I'm thinking of tea, I always think of Mrs. Doyle from Father Ted. And just as an aside there. But the tannins actually bind to minerals, and then we actually excrete those minerals. Some of us are putting sugar in that tea. Guess what? It uses up a lot of magnesium when we actually are eating it, and we have sugar more often than not just in tea, but in a lot of those processed foods. And we're drip feeding them in all across the day, so we're leaching out our minerals continuously. Coffee is not an alternative, let me add. And low potassium levels increase magnesium loss. And I see a lot of people with low potassium levels in particular. Our gut health is now, as most people know, not in the place that it should be. It's actually becoming a larger and larger, well-known issue in our Western society, and because of those food depletions and the antibiotic use and the other medical medicines and pharmaceutical usage that's actually damaging that, as well as our processed foods. So, magnesium is dependent on good intestinal health. If we have not got the bacteria in place and the membrane is damaged, guess what? We do not absorb it in the way that we should be doing, because we cannot break the foods down that are already deficient in the first place. So we are leading ourselves down a route that actually is not helping us. But it's not just about the food. Our medications are also impacting on our magnesium levels, things like antacids, antibiotics, as we know, diuretics, all cause magnesium deficiency and depletion. And it can affect every organ system in the body. So before you were thinking, actually, this is only one aspect, in regards to, I feel a bit of cramping, ultimately you are seeing all of the different things that it can actually affect: twitching, cramping, muscle tension, muscle soreness, backache, neck pain. How many of us have that? Tension headaches, most people at the end of a stressful day. TMJ dysfunction all around the jaw and the neck. Chest tightness, I see this a lot now. People not being able to get to the bottom of it, unable to take deep breaths. People who sigh a lot, interestingly enough. Then you've got impaired contraction of the smooth muscle tissues. And this is another aspect. You've got constipation. So many people come to me and they have got digestive issues, and a lot of that is constipation. What is considered the norm with our medical colleagues is actually not in naturopathic circles. We consider constipation damaging. We need to resolve gut health. So I don't want to see constipation at all. I want that bowel lovely and flowing, and we do not want the contraction of the muscle tissues to be too contracted, so it prevents actual peristalsis from properly happening. So constipation is one of those aspects. You've got urinary spasming, menstrual cramping, spasms in general. You're actually looking at magnesium and those other electrolytes, so you need to consider that. Difficulty in swallowing. A lot of people have difficulty in swallowing and not understanding why. Lump in the throat feeling, and not just when you've done something wrong or you're scared of something. Photophobia. So the issues with the light. I see a lot more people having issues with the light. Difficulty in adjusting to bright lights, and noise sensitivity. I see that a lot with my stress clients. They're finding they're becoming hypersensitive. And we've got the central nervous system. We have things like insomnia, struggling to get to sleep even can be a magnesium deficiency, because that inability to wind down efficiently. Got things like anxiety, hyperactivity, and restlessness, panic attacks, agoraphobia, and premenstrual irritability. We need to look at the magnesium levels. You've got peripheral nervous system effects as well, that numbness, that tingling, those zip zaps and vibrating sensations that we just can't actually understand what's happening. Cardiovascular is one that's well known about. Heart arrhythmias, for instance. You've got angina, heart, and high blood pressure, the change in blood pressure, and obviously the issues with the mitral valve are all a factor. So that person that's uptight, that's highly likely that they're suffering from magnesium deficiency in particular. But when we consider how much anxiety and depression we have now in our society, it's not surprising that most of us are actually not realizing that we're magnesium deficient. Even those who are slightly deficient become highly strung, sensitive to noise, and more irritable with magnesium deficiency. So, and feeling uptight is a great sign that it's starting to happen for us. And you know, you can get salt cravings with this deficiency. You've got carbohydrate cravings with the deficiency. You've got carbohydrate intolerances as well. We all know the need for chocolate, and many of the women watching this are likely to have had some form of breast tenderness. That's also a factor to start looking out for. It's not the only reason for it, but it could be one of the key reasons for it. And then you can see the brain in front of you there. The brain's also affected. You know, if you're looking at the cardiovascular system being affected, then it's clear that the brain is also going to be affected because of that. You know, the blood flow to the actual brain is absolutely key, as you can imagine. You know, you've got things like clouded thinking, confusion, disorientation, depression, and headaches. These are signs that people get and actually think are other things. So we could be treating depression, and actually it's a magnesium deficiency. Things like people being confused, that could also be, you know, a part of something like changes in blood sugar levels. And it does affect the metabolic health. So ultimately, there's a lot of crossover here with other disease states, chronic disease states. And you can see now why this mineral is so key, because it could be indicating other disease states are happening. You got your bone health. Large amounts of calcium are lost in the urine when magnesium is deficient. Just think about that. Now, if you're having lots of chocolate, obviously the oxalate, although there's magnesium in it, the oxalate in it can be preventing magnesium absorption. You've got the sugar. Often women eat high amounts of sugar. You know, we've got high amounts of sugar in our diets anyway, but at certain times in the month we have higher amounts of cravings. We often turn to sugar. Wine in the evening. We've got, you know, sweets that we tend to be eating, and more cakes and things like that. And what tends to happen is that then leaches the calcium out of the bones. And when, you know, we've got more of a magnesium deficiency, it might be that you need more magnesium than to eat more sweets. Things like tooth decay, you've got poor bone development, osteoporosis, and slow healing of bones. And there's that link, obviously, there with the osteoporosis. And then, as I was talking about earlier, you've got your metabolic health. And it is associated with insulin resistance. Just think about that for a moment. So if you are struggling with your blood sugar levels, you need to start to look at your magnesium levels. But also, if you have someone with obviously diabetes type 2 in the family, then you might want to be considering their magnesium levels. And obviously, as you can see from the gentleman in the corner, that bump of the tummy starting to happen is a good sign that you're starting to get insulin resistance. So as you can see here, more diabetics need more magnesium because they tend to lose more magnesium. All right, so, and sleep, you know, if you're unrefreshed in the morning, this could be due to your magnesium levels at night basically dropping too far, which then leads to poorer sleeping cycles. There's lots and lots of things here that you could be looking at. Now, in regards to the forms of magnesium, you've got magnesium oxide, and you've got a lot of different forms of magnesium. Let me get this straight, you know, and most supplement companies will use maybe one or two in their supplements, depending on whether it's a supermarket supplement and a more synthetic, cheap supplement. Yeah, is dependent on which type they tend to use. If you're going to the likes of the Cytoplan and some of the more respectable, from my perspective, food state supplement companies, and the likes of BioCare, NutriGold, Wild Nutrition, Terra Nova, those sorts of places, you're going to find that they use different types for different reasons, and I'll just explain why. You know, magnesium oxide, you know, it's not that well absorbed, if I'm honest, and it's generally found in the cheaper supplements. It can have quite a strong laxative effect. The oxide means that it's actually bonded to oxygen and therefore can affect how you feel when you take the magnesium. The taurate basically is heart supportive, so it helps you to feel calmer. Less commonly found in supplements. It tends to help the heart relax, blood vessels to open and deliver more blood to the heart tissue. Taurine is actually an amino acid that feeds the cardiac muscle, which is why it's why it's been linked, that it's been bonded with that, and it can aid therefore the heart contractions. Chelated magnesium is very absorbable, and it's clearly bound to an amino acid. Magnesium glycinate, the next one on the list, is highly absorbable, has good bioavailability. Glycine's a relaxing neurotransmitter that can make you feel very, very relaxed. And obviously, there's a benefit to taking that if you're looking to reduce anxiety and things. The aspartate helps to improve cellular energy. In particular, magnesium chloride, that's your sprays forms. Often I will use this because it's from my perspective, it avoids the digestion, then it doesn't have any issues on the digestion, and it's taken in through the skin. It can make the skin quite itchy and prickly and uncomfortable, and so there is a downside to that sometimes. You just, you apply and massage in, and it's actually a good choice if you've got low stomach acid, for instance, because of the chloride in it. So it's clearly one of your electrolytes. Magnesium citrate is combined with citric acid and can give you loose stools if you have too much of it too frequently. And that's because actually the citrate gets to the small intestine, and that attracts water and induces a bowel movement effectively. It's inexpensive, so you are likely to see this more frequently, and it is more common in supplements, to be honest. Citric acid increases the rate it's absorbed, it tends to be absorbed quite quickly into the system. Therefore, you will notice quite a fast change. You normally take it and feel within a matter of 20 minutes to 30 minutes, you should be feeling more energized from it. It actually works best on an empty stomach, followed by a good glass of water, if I'm honest. Magnesium threonate is bioavailable, really absorbable, and penetrates the mitochondrial membrane and crosses the blood-brain barrier as well. So it's been used in studies with Alzheimer's disease patients. That's where they've understood that far, far more. It can help with learning difficulties, short-term memory, and can enhance the sleep quality. It can help with mental sharpness and cognitive health. So you may want to look at that, with your memory issues in particular. Orotate is beneficial for the heart. You've got your sulfate, which is clearly your Epsom salts that lots of you will know, that provides the sulfur and can help with not only muscle ache, but I find it can be quite helpful during detoxification because the sulfur can support the liver detoxification pathways. Lysine has gut health potential, let's put it like that. And magnesium malate, one of my favorites actually, supports ATP production and cellular energy. So you've got a number of different magnesiums there to choose from and enjoy playing with. Now, the reason you've got different forms is because you can't just have magnesium on its own as a molecule. It has to be bound to something else. So this is why you've got magnesium taurate, magnesium orotate. So, and how many of you remember milk of magnesia? And most of you remember, if you're my age, it was a laxative. So and that's why some of these do work. They're quite in that sort of way. Magnesium tends to be quite poorly absorbed, by the way. 35 to 45% in the best of circumstances. This is where the digestion in regards to the intestinal picture matters. Calcium and magnesium compete, by the way, for absorption. So when taken together, they will compete, and you are less likely to absorb either or of them. So you're best, from my perspective, if you are going to take larger amounts, taking them away from your supplementation. And you'll see that some of the companies don't put magnesium with calcium in a lot of their multis. They just keep them with magnesium, and then you can add calcium if you want. And depending on how you feel will change how you take your supplements, but mostly magnesium should be taken on an empty stomach. I find that that's the most helpful. I like to put it onto the skin to be absorbed, as I've said, and particularly if there's dysbiosis in the digestion or difficulties in the digestion, because it can cause more difficulties initially. Fascinating research found that there's a protein encoding gene which incorporates magnesium, and potentially is suggesting that magnesium in the body may alter gene expression and behavior of the proteins in our body. Not surprisingly, really. This has a massive implication on our health and well-being. And they found that 5% of the human genome was inheriting the capability of binding magnesium ions. So absolutely, that should give you food for thought, really. Where do you find it? Most of us are just not eating enough of the right foods. I try and get people to eat 5 a day. In all honesty, that's way, way less than you should be eating. 7 would be, in some research is seen as a good way of preventing some of the disease states. The Victorians in research has shown that they would have had 10 a day of your fruits and vegetables. So, most people find that quite difficult. You'd be juicing and you'd be juicing a portion of those in particular to get that number in, I imagine. But it's in most foods. It's not a difficult mineral to get, in all honesty. It's just about variety of foods, and often we're eating more processed foods and foods that are devoid of these minerals far more than we should be doing. But as you can see, fish, apples, apricots, avocado, banana, blackberries, molasses, brown rice, cantaloupe, nugs, it goes on and on. You can see it's a whole list there. And then you've got herbs, some herbs at the bottom. I've not put them all on there. Alfalfa, bladderwrack, cayenne pepper, chamomile. So you can see it is a wide variety of foods. And clearly with some of those herbs, you just need to be more careful with some of them and use go and do your own research in regards to how to use these products and when to use these products and when to use these herbs and things like that. Okay, right then. I hope you've enjoyed that short presentation on magnesium, and I look forward to seeing you if you are a client and or getting some feedback from you.